So welcome today to Wixer Productions. I'm just going to take you through a basic color grade using this bit of footage shot with the Sony A7S3 in S-Log3. So I'm just going to show you a basic color grade of what you can do if you're just getting started especially. So first thing I like to do is I like to get full control with the way I've set up the timelines. I'll just bypass color management for this. So we're going to add a few nodes. The first one is going to be denoise, if you want to denoise. The second one is going to be a CST-in. The third one is going to be your exposure. Fourth one's going to be your white balance. Then we're going to have some saturation, contrast, and finally a CST out. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to color space transform tool, pop it in here for the CST in, and obviously, like I said, we shot with Sony A7S3, Sony S-Gamma 3 Cine. It was S-Log3 footage, and you can see how the footage is starting to change. The output we're going to put at, so because I'm going to show you now, guys, what we do. So we put it at DaVinci wide gamut. This gives us a lot more flexibility. And then we're going to go to the next one. We're going to go DaVinci intermediate, and you see it kind of goes back into almost like an S-Log looking footage again. But this is where we're now going to jump to the CST out, and this is where we're going to then do the same thing. So now the input color space is DaVinci wide gamut. The input gamma is going to be DaVinci intermediate, and then your output color space is going to be Rec 709, and output gamma we're going to leave on Rec 709 here. Now I am editing on a Samsung display, so that is why I'm going to leave it at Rec 709. If I was editing on a Mac, I can go with Rec 709A, and the footage will change a bit because obviously I'm not working on a Mac right now. I'm using it more for reference for scopes. So I'm going to basically use Rec 709. And as you can see, this is now the footage. So you've got, so if I switch it off, okay, so you can toggle Apple D. You can always select 1 or 2 and go Apple D to see what your effect is going to be. And the first thing we're going to do is basically balance the exposure. So at the moment, the exposure does look pretty good. And there's many ways to do this. And a lot of people actually like to do this where they go gamma, you go into the gamma and you actually set it to linear, where you get a lot more control with your exposure levels. So now obviously you can play with your curves. Now you can obviously just expand the image a bit. We can then bring it down a little bit in the shadows, just to kind of give it a little bit of something. You don't want to do too much here. This is kind of just where you do your balancing, and obviously you can do it in your primaries, you can do it in your log wheels, and this is where we're going to obviously, play around. So at the moment the image is pretty good, it's pretty balanced, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically bring down the shadows a bit. So I'm just going to bring it down very slightly. The midtones very subtly, just going to play with them, see where it looks great. And then the gain, I'm just going to pop it up a little bit, not too much. Now the beautiful thing is obviously if you do want to pop it up and you've got a lot of areas in your image that are very bright, this is when we're going to the HDR wheels. You got your specular, you got your highlight, your lights, your shadow, dark, black, right? So, and obviously your global. So if we go to your highlight, you'll see when you click this button, it actually shows you where it's going to affect the situation. And if you click Shift H, you'll actually get the whole entire image shown to you. And this is where you can actually select areas of where you want to, affect the image, right? And then on the right hand side, you've actually got your roll off. So see how it rolls off. Okay. So it's going back Apple H, and I'm just going to basically bring down the highlights a little bit, just the brightest parts of the image. So I'm going to go into highlight, and you can see nothing's really selected right now, but as I start to bring it down, you see I'm starting to bring in some of the brightest areas of the image. And I'm going to give a bit of roll off, Apple H again, and I'm going to bring that down very subtly, just to kind of give me some play when I want to go and play with the contrast later on. Okay, so that's exposure done, we leave it for now. Now we're going to go to white balance, and white balance is a great way to do this. So we're just going to change to the vector scope, and you can see where most of the image is falling at the moment. We're going to change the white balance, and this is something a lot of beginners forget to actually do. So we're going to switch off, and then in our primaries, so now in the primaries, we're going to take our luminance mix down, and what we're going to do now is we are actually going to take the gain wheel and we're just going to move it until most of the information sits in the middle. Now, obviously, you can see, I think about there, it looks about right to my eye. And we're just going to toggle off Apple D, and you can see I've definitely got the white balance looking more balanced, which is great compared to what it was, where most of the image was falling in the yellow and green section. So now we've got a little bit better, well, yellow, red, and green. So now we've got a little bit better, which is great. It's more balanced. And there's another way to also do it. So I could check like, okay, so I could select this area here and say, okay, well, this is pretty white. And I'm going to basically, there's other ways to obviously balance it. You can balance it in your bars. You can obviously start looking at it in your parade section, try and balance it here and see if that works for you. But I like to do it this way. So I'm going to take a mask and I'm going to just sort of mask this section out, right? So I'm just going to mask this section out. Just going to follow me with this, guys. So this is something just to check, and you can just choose an area and image is very white. We're going to go Apple H to just select the area, and I've got the area selected. Go back to your vector scope, and we're basically going to look at our circle here. So you can just see here, I'm just going to show you guys. So everything's sitting pretty much nice in the middle, which is great. So it's telling me that obviously I am right. So if you see, if I started doing that, just to show you guys, like if I started moving it around, you'll see that line that appears. And if you actually get that line quite dead center, you actually get quite a beautiful white balance. So it's another way of just double checking your white balance. It's really cool. And then just turn that mask off and then Apple H to go back to the image. So now we know, like, okay, there's nothing missing. Like, we are pretty white, and the whited sections are pretty good. It's well balanced. Now we're going to go into saturation. So saturation, I'm just going to take the channels. I'm going to switch off the channel 1 and channel 3. So we're going to work on channel 2, and we're going to change, in this situation, we're going to change the color space to HSL. So we're not going to just go with the basic saturation down here. We're not going to do that. No, we're going to do this, which gives you a lot better saturation quality. Gives you a much better result. And we're going to just push the gain wheel, and you can just see the saturation is coming in. So you know what? We're going to do something which I love to do. We're going to go very crazy, okay? So we can see that there's an effect happening. And then we're going to pull it back. And we're going to pull it back and pull it back and pull it back and pull it back. And we're going to see where it looks really nice. So in the contrast wheel, we're going to just look at these areas here. So we look at the contrast and pivot. And a nice little way to start with the pivot is to go to 0.35 or 0.33, and you can select, see whatever works for you better, whatever works better for you. And I'm just going to push this like this. Just going to go just to expand the image, just to give us something, and see what it's done there. So it's giving us a nice little result. And we can see we're not clipping anything, we're not losing any detail in the shadows, we still got everything intact, which is great. And obviously this is pretty much your basic editing tree. We're just going to add another node now, and this is going to be a film look. And this obviously is optional. If you guys like the image as is, you can obviously leave it as is. And we're going to search for something called film look. And there's a lot of things that you can do with regards to the image with DaVinci Resolve. I mean, you can obviously add halation, glows, etc. Separately, but I'm going to add the film look, right, which is going to be here, the film look creator. We're going to add it, and eventually, basically off the bat, it gives you a built-in look, right? And I'm going to change the preset to cinematic just to show you guys what that looks like. And that'll give you your film gate, to give you basically some bloom effects, some grain, and you obviously have full control over that. So I can change the grain to 16mm if I want, to 35mm, bring it down. So you've got a lot of control here. You can even do some split toning, change the hue and angle, the pivot, right? You can do a stronger effect. Okay, so what I like to do is start off a clean slate, okay? And I personally like to use the grain setting in this at 35mm. Let's bring it down a bit. So just to add some detail back with the grain, because we did denoise it. And yeah, that's pretty much a very, very basic DaVinci Resolve structure that I've created for you. I'm not going to go deeper than that for this episode, and you guys can just see exactly how to get started. So just to recap, basically, again, we going to switch all of them off and we're going to start again. So we're just going to go the denoising, obviously we'll leave it off for now. The CST in, we did a CST out, we did some basic exposure, we did some basic white balancing using linear, not just doing any other white balancing. We also checked it by choosing a certain area that looked white to us, and we checked it to see that it was perfectly balanced. We added some saturation and we added some contrast. And at the right end, after the CST out, we did a little bit of a film look with some grain. And naturally, we can obviously go a bit further and add some of the extra custom effects, but we're not going to do that for now, and we're going to leave it at that. So thank you so much for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more tutorials. I hope you enjoyed this basic beginners S-Log3 tutorial. Thank you so much.